Right. So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into, a pretty big concept, God's unconditional love and
Well,
forgiveness.
yeah,
And
that's a big one.
we've got a lot of stuff you shared with me, sermons from Pastor Orion LeVar. We've got some Bible verses, and even some of your own personal reflections.
Okay.
But the theme that ties it all together
hmm
is this idea of being a living sacrifice.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? It's one of those things that you can kind of get caught up in
Yeah.
the words living sacrifice and kind of picture something,
Oh, yeah, totally.
pretty dramatic. But
Yeah.
when you actually dig into it,
Okay.
it's much more personal than that, I think. It's more about
No.
aligning your everyday life with God's will.
I'll admit, when I first heard living sacrifice, I pictured, something out of Indiana Jones,
Right, exactly.
like some big,
A big ceremony
Yeah,
with
yeah.
robes and
exactly, a lot of chanting. But what you're saying makes a lot more sense.
yeah, it's about dedication, not some,
Right.
physical offering or a one-time thing.
And Pastor LeVar
Yeah.
really drove that home in his sermon.
He did.
Okay?
Absolutely. And he used this analogy of a relationship, which I thought was really, really helpful. Because in any, strong relationship, you make choices
Of course.
to show the other person you care.
Yeah.
You go out of your way sometimes to do things for them.
Yeah.
And it's the same with God.
Yeah.
Being a living sacrifice means you're actively choosing
Yeah.
to live in a way that honors him.
So it's not so much about the big sweeping gestures.
Right.
It's more about just how we live every day.
It's how you make decisions in your
Yeah.
day-to-day life.
And that makes it feel so much more attainable.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So where does this idea of unconditional love and forgiveness
Okay.
fit into all this?
It's woven through all these sources,
Yeah.
even when we mess up,
Right.
even when we make mistakes.
Yeah.
God's love
Yeah.
doesn't waver.
Okay.
And again, Pastor LeVar had a great analogy for that. He compared it to a parent's love for their child.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I thought that was such a powerful image.
Yeah, because a parent's love is just there no matter
It's there.
what, no matter how badly you screw up.
Exactly.
Right.
Like,
It's really encouraging to know
yeah.
that even if we haven't always been,
Mhm.
perfect, we're still
Yeah.
loved and forgiven,
Yeah,
but it's not like a get out of jail free card.
exactly. It's not a free pass to just
Keep messing up.
keep doing whatever you want.
Right. There's still that idea of
That's an invitation to grow,
Yeah.
to change, to align yourself with God's will.
yeah, and I'm seeing this phrase, this idea of a right relationship
Yeah.
with God.
Right relationship with God.
It keeps popping up.
It's all over the place in these
Yeah, in all of these sources.
sources. Yeah.
So it's not
You're picking up on a crucial point.
Okay.
Yeah. Forgiveness it's not passive. It's
Yeah.
not just sitting back and saying, "Well, I'm good."
Right. It's not just about saying
But
it's an
and believe
it's an invitation to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about actually putting that belief
Exactly.
into action.
Yeah, it's about taking action. It's
Yeah.
about studying scripture,
Yeah.
seeking understanding, and then
Right.
letting that knowledge guide.
So it's a process. It's not just like
It's a process.
line
That's-
done.
yeah.
It's dynamic, not.
Right. And that's kind of what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Because it's like
It is a journey.
it can feel like
It's a journey.
you're being pulled in so many different directions.
Oh, absolutely.
Life is so busy.
It is. Yeah. There's got a lot of distractions.
Distractions everywhere.
Yeah.
So how do we even
How do we even begin to navigate all that?
begin to navigate all
Yeah.
that and stay focused on what God wants for us?
You're hitting on a really important point here.
Okay.
And it's something that comes up in Pastor LeVar's sermon too.
Yeah.
He talks about how even though Satan is defeated,
Mhm.
he's still out there
Right.
trying to tempt us, trying to distract us
Yeah.
from God's plan.
He uses this great analogy about
Yeah.
short attention span.
Short attention spans
Yeah,
that we
no.
have now.
It's true though.
We're
But
constantly being
we were bombarded with messages and
bombarded with messages. Exactly.
yeah,
It's like,
we have to be very careful. It's so easy to get sidetracked.
it is. It's
Yeah.
very easy to get sidetracked, even with the best of intentions.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, what do we do about it?
What do we do about it? Yeah, that's the question.
How do we recognize
Eh.
these negative influences
Mhm.
and resist them?
Well, that's
And I'm thinking about you, listener, right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are some of those things in your life
That's the key question.
that might be pulling you away from God's path?
And it's not always easy
Yeah.
to answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes those influences are so subtle,
They're insidious.
Yeah, almost invisible sometimes. And but I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Taking a step back and honestly evaluating the things we're allowing into our minds and hearts.
So you're talking about paying attention to the messages we're consuming?
Yeah. The messages you're consuming.
The company we keep.
Yeah, the company you keep.
The thoughts we're having.
Yeah, the thoughts you're having. Yeah. Absolutely. Remembering that we have a choice.
Right.
You can choose to focus on things that uplift and inspire you, that draw you closer to God.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to wallow in negativity.
And I imagine that choice really affects how well we're able to live out this.
It impacts everything.
Idea of being a living sacrifice. Yeah, right.
For sure.
If we're constantly,
if you're distracted all the time, it's hard to
good choices.
It's hard to do the things that we need to do.
Absolutely.
To align our lives with God's will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of making an impact, there was one of the sources that you shared, a quote from Proverbs that really stood out to me. Oh, yeah.
When a man's ways please the Lord.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He makes even his enemies to be at peace with him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
powerful.
That's powerful stuff.
That is.
Like, that's suggesting that by living a life that honors God.
Absolutely.
It can literally transform our relationships.
For sure.
Even with
it really is
people who might oppose us.
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of God's love.
Yeah.
To work through us, to change hearts and minds, and bring about peace and reconciliation.
Peace, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that even when there's conflict, there's still hope.
There's always hope
for change.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that idea that that God
we touched on earlier
is working within us, of God working within us. It's not just about
that's the thing. It's not just
changing the world, changing the world around you.
It's about allowing God to change.
Letting God transform you
from the inside.
From the inside out.
Yeah.
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 And when that happens.
And that when that happens, I mean.
Yeah, when we truly embrace God's
right.
love and guidance.
That can lead to some amazing results.
It can lead to some pretty amazing results.
Yeah. It really is about letting go of the need to control everything.
Right.
And surrendering to a love that sets us free.
Sets us free.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to think that by surrendering to God's love, we actually become more powerful.
Oh, yeah.
More capable of changing things.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like a paradox, right?
Yeah.
We tend to think of surrender as weakness.
Right.
But in this case, it's actually about embracing a strength that's bigger than us.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned this idea earlier of God actually dwelling within us. And Pastor LeVar really talked about that.
He did.
In his sermon.
Yeah.
And that imagery.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, he spoke about God wanting to clothe himself in your body and present himself to somebody else through you.
Okay, so it's like putting on a superhero suit.
Yeah, kind of, right. You become this...
We become like... Vessels for his love and grace.
Right, exactly.
And we radiate it outward.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me smile.
I know. It's a good image.
That's a good image.
And it ties back into this whole concept of being a living sacrifice. It's not like a one and done. Here's my Here's my sacrifice. I'm done.
It's this constant.
It's a continuous dedication of our lives to His purpose.
And we're always trying.
Yeah, we're constantly striving to align our actions with His will.
Align our actions with His will.
Letting Him work through us.
And so it's not just about our own relationship.
Exactly. It's not just about this internal...
God.
Personal thing between you and God.
It's about how that relationship ripples outward.
Right.
It
impacts the world around us.
The world around us, it affects how you
and
interact with other people.
Connects with that quote from Proverbs we were talking about.
Exactly.
How a life that pleases God can bring peace.
Yes.
Even with your enemies.
That's a powerful reminder.
Even in the middle of all this conflict.
Yeah, even in the midst of all this opposition.
All the time.
Yeah.
A life dedicated to God can be a force.
Can be a force for peace.
For peace.
And reconciliation.
Yeah. It's
about, choosing
to respond.
To respond
with
love and grace.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's difficult.
That's a tough challenge.
Yeah, it is. Especially in our world today.
In a world that often feels.
Yeah, so much negativity and anger.
But you're saying that by letting God work through us, we can
break down those barriers.
Create space for understanding.
Make space for understanding and peace.
Exactly. It all starts on an internal thing first.
With that internal transformation, with allowing God's love to fill you up and then overflow into interactions with others.
It's choosing
forgiveness over
resentment.
Yeah, forgiveness over resentment, compassion, over judgment.
So it sounds like what you're talking about is a shift in perspective.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Instead of approaching things from a place of fear or ego, we're learning to see the world. To see the world through a lens of love.
Love and grace. And that changes.
And that shift
everything
in perspective can have a profound impact on how you approach everything in life.
Our closest relationships.
Yeah, from your closest relationships.
To how we interact with strangers.
To the way you interact.
Yeah.
With people you don't even know.
So it's not just about avoiding conflict.
Right. It's about
actively promoting peace.
Peace and understanding.
Yeah. And it begins by cultivating that.
And it all starts.
That inner peace.
With cultivating that inner peace. Yeah. That sense of calm. And surrender that comes. From trusting in God. In God's love.
Yeah.
And guidance.
And when we're grounded in that.
Yeah, when you're grounded in that, you're less reactive.
Less likely to be pulled in.
To negativity and conflict.
Yeah, and more likely to extend grace and compassion to others. Even when they don't deserve it. And that's kind of radical.
It is. It's a radical concept.
Especially in our world.
Especially in a world that often feels
so focused on getting even.
Yeah, or winning at all costs.
Yeah. But it's also incredibly liberating.
It is.
Think about it when we let go of that need to be right.
Yeah.
To control everything, to prove ourselves to other people.
You're reminding me of that analogy.
You free yourself from so much burden and stress.
Trading yokes.
Yeah.
That Pastor LeVar talked about.
It's a beautiful image.
Yeah, we can
choose to carry that heavy weight.
You can choose to carry
of the world's expectations.
The heavy weight of the world's expectations.
Yeah. Or we can surrender.
You can choose to surrender
to God's love.
And
take on his lighter yoke.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful image.
It really is.
And it speaks
to the freedom.
Yeah, the freedom that comes from aligning ourselves with God's will. It's not about
it's not about following a rigid set of
It's about surrendering to a love. Sets us free.
That sets you free.
And that freedom allows us to experience the true joy.
Exactly.
And purpose.
Yeah.
That comes from living a life.
Dedicated to God.
A life dedicated to God.
Yeah. It just strikes me that this whole idea of being a living sacrifice, it really comes down to a choice, doesn't it?
Yeah. We can choose to live for ourselves. Chase after all the things the world tells us are important. Or we can choose to surrender to God's love and let him work through us.
You captured it perfectly. It's a choice, and it's a choice we make.
Every day.
Every single day. In big ways and small ways. And the beautiful thing is no matter how many times we mess up, God's love and forgiveness are always right there waiting for us.
Yeah, and that's so reassuring.
It is.
Especially
when we think about
all the
mistakes we've made.
Yeah. Like you said, God's love.
It's like a parent's
love.
Unconditional.
It's always constant, always forgiving.
It's not about
staying stuck
in
those mistakes.
Right.
Right. It's about
using that forgiveness as fuel.
taking that forgiveness.
Yeah, to move forward and grow.
Growing and becoming more aligned with God's will.
Exactly. Forgiveness isn't a destination.
Yeah.
It's a starting point.
Right.
It's the foundation
Okay.
that allows us to step into a new way of living.
Yeah.
A life marked by purpose and joy and peace.
Right.
And that's where this idea of transformation.
Yeah, it's not just about the external stuff.
It's not just about the external change.
Right. It's about something.
It's an internal,
deeper. Shift.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about those personal reflections.
Oh yeah.
That you shared.
Yeah.
You wrote about just feeling God's presence.
Yeah.
Guiding you, strengthening you. I mean, that's it
is very real.
A real thing.
And it's something that becomes more and more evident the more we surrender to his will.
Abstract concept.
Yeah, it's like we're tuning into
frequency
to a different
couldn't hear before.
Yeah, frequency. And that guidance, it empowers us to make a difference.
Yeah.
Right? To be those ambassadors of love and grace that we were talking about.
It's like tapping into.
Yeah, it's like we're tapping into
the source of infinite
energy and
source of energy, and it's flowing through us.
Letting it flow through you.
Yeah.
And touch the lives.
Matching the lives
of those around you.
Of those around us.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it.
And it reminds us that this isn't just about.
And it's a reminder that
personal salvation.
The faith isn't just about personal salvation.
Right, we're
part of something.
It's about being a part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just filled with this sense of awe.
Yeah.
At this incredible power of God's love.
It really.
And forgiveness. And it's a love that meets us right where we are.
It does.
It heals our wounds and it empowers us to live a life that matters. And it brings us back to that question we started with.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a living sacrifice?
What does it mean to be a living sacrifice?
Yeah.
It means choosing love over fear.
Yeah.
Forgiveness over resentment. And surrender over control.
Yeah.
It means letting God's love transform you from the inside out.
Yeah.
And then letting that transformation ripple outward.
And for you, listener, as you reflect on everything we talked about today, ask yourself this. What burdens are you carrying that you could trade for Jesus' lighter yoke? Where are you holding back from fully surrendering to God's love?
Yeah.
What could be possible if you took that step of faith and allowed his power to transform you?
Keep exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
And see where they lead you. You